Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. I'm really excited about our guest tonight. He's not a jazz musician, and he's not a Caribbean musician. This gentleman is a classical trumpeter. He plays classical trumpet and piccolo trumpet, and he hails from New Orleans, and he's amazing. You're gonna have a good time just hearing his story and checking out his music. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Mr. Rodney Marsalis to the show.
Hi, how you doing? So nice to be here.
Hey Rodney, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, this is really, it's a little unique, from what we normally do, but after meeting you and having a conversation with you, I was like, man, my audience would really dig you. I know they would enjoy your story. They would enjoy to hear what you do and hear you play.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to sharing. I can't wait.
Yes. So you're originally from New Orleans, grew up in New Orleans, and you're part of the Marsalis family.
Yeah, Winton was my first real trumpet teacher.
Okay.
I had some before that, but when I was about 11 years old, I went to study with Winton, and that's when I really got my butt kicked. And so that's when it really started. I was very fortunate to have him as my first classical teacher. That's what we worked on was classical and technique and things like that.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know that Winton, he's a classical trumpet player as well.
Yeah, that's mostly how I knew him. Was with my lessons where you're working on basics, you're working on concertos, and then Winton, when he left to go to Juilliard, he brought me to his teacher and left me with his teacher, who was George Jansen.
Okay.
Was an older Italian gentleman who went down to New Orleans and taught Winton and Terrence, and I was fortunate to study with him. So yeah.
Great. So, you always knew that classical was, going to be your world. You never try to participate in the jazz genre at all?
Well, as I was telling you guys earlier, I was in Ellis's jazz class at one point at New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, but Winton had left a bunch of his recordings, classical recordings, in the jazz class. And I just kept gravitating towards those recordings. It was Maurice Andre playing the Haydn concerto, and Timothy Doxitcher playing the Artunian concerto, and another very famous trumpet player playing this thing called the new trumpet. It was all this really hard contemporary music, Gerard Schwarz.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept going up there, and I was just listening to those recordings, and I wasn't doing the work in the jazz class. Finally, Ellis was like, just go downstairs. You belong in the classical program. so he kicked me out, basically.
He kicked you out, but you found your niche. You found your thing.
That's what it was. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, because it's really interesting, as growing up as a budding musician, we want to play all the pop music. We want to be on stage. We want to be, flashy and show, all of that. And a lot of folks don't realize that it takes a lot of discipline to really do what you do.
Well, and the reason I was very fortunate is because Ellis and my mom, they grew up like brother and sister.
Okay.
So whenever there was a question in my home with my mom, I'd be like, well, let's go ask Ellis. And we'd get in the car, we'd drive over to Hickory Street, and we'd sit down with Ellis. And I remember at one point it had to do with practicing. And my mom, who she was right. You always need to have many things that you do in life and other options. But my mom was saying, well, he needs to have something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
But then Ellis was like, he shouldn't plan on falling. And,
exactly.
And he was like, if he's serious about this, and I was about 12 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Ellis was like, if he's serious, he's gonna have to be practicing 5 hours a day.
Right.
And when you have so much respect for people like Ellis, they're your, they're the patriarch of the family. I took it seriously, and I did practice that much when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I developed that habit from very early on, of that kind of 4, 5, 6 hours a day of practice.
I think it's a Marsalis thing because Wynton did the same thing, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, because I was Wynton left me with his teacher, what would happen was his teacher still had remembered how long it took Wynton to work up every single etude.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get to a Clark study, and George Jansen, I remember at the time, he'd be like, Wynton did this in 3 weeks. So now, Wynton did this one in 2 weeks. Wynton did this one in 1 week. So every single etude, he remembered how long it took Wynton to master it, to get it down. So I always had that I was very fortunate to have that in Carnival of Venice was one of the first pieces I ever heard live by a trumpet player, and it was Wynton playing on a recital. And so the people I heard initially were people like Wynton and Terrence, and I just assumed that that's how it was. I assumed that, and a lot more. I'm just naming Wynton and Terrence. There are a lot of cats who could really play like these hard cornet solos, because George Jansen loved cornet solos. So he would do a recital, and I'd play first because I was like a kid. I was 11, and then all these guys would play all these cornet solos, ending with Terrence playing one of the really hard ones, like Bride of the Waves or something. So that was my world back then in New Orleans. I didn't know anything else, and being and practicing, and just been practicing like a lot.
Right. And that's kind of what it have to be, is you have to grow up in it and embrace it and not really know anything else, because if you start thinking about other things, like Ella say, why think about falling? If you just do what you need to do, and that's kind of the way it should be to be successful in this craft. You just have to own it and just go for it. And that's one of the things I admired. I remember having Delfeo on the show, and he was saying a similar story of just being committed and own it and just want to do it. And your world is you're a performer and you're out here doing great things. We're going to talk about some of the groups that you've performed with, but your world is different than the jazz world, but you're still in the music industry. And I want to talk about that because you'll see your cousins go on the road and come back and hear the stories, but there's a difference of what you do compared to what they do, and how it's being presented. You're out there playing with symphony orchestras, and you're doing a lot of classical things, and I love your music. I enjoyed it. I mean, when I got introduced to you, I went and Googled you right away. I was 4 hours on the internet, like, wow. So tell us about being a classical musician.
Well, it involves a lot of practicing and studying with a lot of different teachers, because a lot of what, just like any other art form, a lot of it's not written down. So when I was younger, Wynton was like, you got to go to New York and you got to study with these teachers. I think Vacchiano was he was principal of the New York Philharmonic. So because there's a tradition, and you have to study with people who are holders of that tradition. So I ended up studying with the former principal of Boston Symphony, and then I went to study with the former principal of Philadelphia. He was principal of Philadelphia Orchestra at the time, Frank Katarabic, and I also studied with the principal of the Boston Symphony, Charles Schluter. So these guys, they held that tradition that's passed down, especially with like the orchestra excerpts. So it's years. First, you have to be able to play the instrument. Then you have to learn the traditions behind all of this music, all this different orchestral music.
Right.
And that's when I did that, and I went to Curtis, and I was in a practice room, 5-6 hours a day, and then you have to audition for jobs, and then you have to go around the country and you walk on stage and you play sometimes for 5 minutes, and they'll say thank you, and they'll send you home. And I did that like 100 times. But you learn as you go along, and that's a part of the process too. Is that so yeah, it takes a long time. But it was something that I was able to have as my own, just to become a classical orchestral player, and that's why I pursued it, and to see what that would be like to have that sort of career.
And so did you always wanted to be a principal chair?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Even when I was in New Orleans, even with like the bands and the things like that. Actually, at one point, this teacher, George Jansen, one of the things he prided himself on was getting his students ready for All-State.
Right.
Well, there was one year that, and I really got to give him credit for this, because he had all the students. So like he had like 12, 15, 20 students, and we all auditioned for All-State. And I had switched spots with one of his students. I was like, oh no, you can go first. You go, I'll go later. So then the list came out, and his name was at the very top of the list, and my name was at the very bottom of the list, like for like people who wouldn't get to go on to All-State. And my teacher, I remember, he called the other band directors. He was like, "It's impossible." I was like, no. So I didn't get to go to All-State that year. I ended up staying home, and I remember sitting back
because you switched spots.
Because I switched spots, and I remember sitting in the back of my dad's Volvo, crying because tears. But because that meant I had to wait a whole year,
right,
before I'd get a chance to prove myself again. But that was the year everything took off, because I had that experience that made me have to wait a year and practice all that time. And then the next year I was principal of the orchestra, which is the top position. So it seemed like a bad thing at the time, but it was probably the best thing that happened.
That was your inspiration right there.
Yeah. I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah.
He's probably still out there, but his initials are MG. So MG, if you're out there, you know what happened.
But that's a great story. We get inspiration from all over, from different places, and it's great, man. So you've been the principal of a number of orchestra. Can you tell us a couple of them that you've had the pleasure of doing that?
Sure. The first one where maybe I should have stayed was in the Canary Islands. I was principal of trumpet of their orchestra there. It's a wonderful orchestra. And I was their principal trumpet for 2 years. And then a friend of mine was playing principal horn in Barcelona, and he told me about the fact that they were looking for a principal trumpet. They had an international audition where they had like I don't know, over 100 trumpet players auditioning. But he said, "Come audition." So I won that position of principal trumpet of Barcelona Symphony. And I ended up doing that for about 6 years. And then I came, before that I was with San Diego Symphony as assistant principal, because I won Denver Symphony and San Diego Symphony at the same time. I was kind of in my hot period auditioning, and I won like 2 jobs at the same time. And I was so superficial. I picked San Diego because I saw a magazine with San Diego, and I was freezing my butt off in Philly. And beaches in San Diego, and I was like, San Diego, Denver, San Diego.
Right. Because Denver can get just as cold.
Yeah. That's why I picked it. But when I came back to the United States, I became principal of the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia, which I'm still principal of that orchestra.
Okay.
But they don't chamber orchestra. They don't need to use trumpet as much. But that's freed up my solo career and the career with my large brass ensemble. So I have the luxury now of time to travel around the world, and so yeah, that's kind of been the groups I've played with.
So for our audience sake, explain to them the job of a principal trumpet player or a principal person in the orchestra. What's, besides just playing the part, what else are you responsible for?
Principal trumpet, especially principal players, they're the leaders in the orchestra. They're the section players. They're going to be listening to that person for style, for volume, for nuance, and especially principal. There's a very special relationship between principal trumpet and the conductor, because it's the trumpet. It's the loudest instrument. And I remember in a really great conductor in Spain, they sort of follow along with the principal trumpet. You're sort of together, with you and the conductor, because you're you're really leading the orchestra because you're sort of the loudest melodic voice a lot of the time. So that's it's sort of it's a very important leading role, and that's why it's so important to really have a good understanding of all the different composers that you're playing, whether it's Bach or Debussy or Mahler or Bruckner. And one of the things I when I was in school, I really studied the lives of these composers. And the best way to study their lives is to read their letters. I remember I used to read the letters of Mahler, would write, or letters of Haydn that he would write to the Prince of Esterhazy. And you get a sense of their personality. It's like reading people's emails. You get to see what they're like. And then when you play the music, then you get to have a closer understanding of what they're trying to do with what they put on the page. So as principal, your job is to lead that along with, you just follow the conductor. You know, they're not making a sound, but you are. So
right. It's kind of like the lead trumpet in a big band.
Very much so.
Yeah. Similar responsibilities to drive the band and initiate styles and stuff like that. Yeah, that's great, man. And in your travels of doing all of this, have you found like I know each orchestra have its own thing, but did you find one orchestra that you really felt was like home?
That's a good question. I love the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia. It's a smaller group, but there's a great tradition of string playing that comes from the Curtis Institute and the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I think in the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia, you hear that with the string players, the level of playing. And then it's a smaller group, so it's more intimate. So I love that. I mean, that's been fun. I also playing Barcelona Symphony was a really great orchestra, and I enjoyed playing with them too.
Nice. And you have a brass group, right?
Yeah, that's where I branched out, was with the Philadelphia Big Brass, and it started here in Philadelphia. And for me, it was sort of there used to be a group that was called the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble. And when I was in New Orleans, I used to go to the library and I would hear this amazing brass ensemble. But I didn't feel like there was something here in the States yet that was like a large brass ensemble that played a lot of different styles of music. So that's what we started here. And that's the group. It's this 10-piece group. And I think right out the bat, we played like a transcription of a Tchaikovsky symphony, like the fourth movement. And I was fortunate. I had some of the top brass players in the world playing with us. And so yeah, that's turned into basically mostly what I do when I'm performing is playing with that brass group.
Well, what's the name of the group?
Oh, it's called the Rodney Marsalis Philadelphia Big Brass.
Big Brass, yeah. Rodney Marsalis.
Too many words. It's really hard on the marquee. Always chopping it down somehow. Rodney Brass.
Rodney Big Brass.
Yeah, or Big Brass. Yeah, there's never enough letters to put it on the marquee. But
that's funny. You said Tchaikovsky. I'm gonna send you after this interview is over. I'm gonna send you a clip of us performing March of the Toy Soldiers this past weekend, but it's completely different the way Tchaikovsky did it. So you're gonna enjoy that.
Love it.
So the Big Brass, tell us about this ensemble. So you mentioned it as a takeoff of one of the ensembles you've heard growing up, but this is like one of the groups you've touring with mainly now, and you guys are doing a lot of things. And so explain to the audience what the Big Brass group is.
Well, the group when we go out, we're from 7 to 10 in size, always with the drummer. So when I was in New Orleans, I was in New Orleans Symphony when I was a kid. When I was like 19 years old. But before that, there was a summer when I was looking for something to do, and I think I went to work at McDonald's for a little bit. And I just did not make it as a McDonald's worker. I was messing stuff up, and they were yelling at me. And then I got my paycheck, and it was like $60. And I was like, but in the meantime, I had started this group on the street, a brass group in New Orleans. And we would go and we'd sit up in front of the Cabildo, and we would play. And it was interesting because we would play, and then there was another group that would play on the corner, and we would stay out there and we'd go. So we'd play like classical, they would play like New Orleans style music, and we kept the crowds. And we made like $100 a person. That was 30 years ago. That was good money. And I would signal, and then they would start, and then they would signal, and we would start. So James was the other trumpeter, great trumpeter. And this little kid playing trombone was James's brother. Later on, I found out that was Trombone Shorty, was the little kid.
Okay.
But the thing that we did with that is we were on the street. People could walk, they could walk right up to you while you were playing. There wasn't that barrier like you feel in classical music a lot of times where it's like, shh, quiet, this is classical music. You have to be serious. You don't feel that on the street. So this group that we tour with now, that's the feeling we try to bring it into the concert halls. So that you don't feel like this sort of barrier between the audience and the group. So sometimes we'll march out into the audience, but we're playing Bach, we're playing Bernstein, we're playing Sousa marches, we're doing New Orleans, we're doing a whole mixture of genres. But the beautiful thing is that we've seen how it works internationally. And it's music is such an international language, and we've played concerts. We were on the stage in the biggest hall in Beijing, laughing with the audience, connecting with them as human beings, all through the music. And I've been very fortunate to have such great colleagues that are part of this mission of doing this all around the world. So that's
And you said with the big band ensemble, you have a drummer.
We do. We have an amazing drummer. And we were rotating in the, but Brian Kennedy he's from LA, fabulous drummer, and he holds everything together. Your drummer's important, there's something about the drummer that really makes a difference.
Tell them how important the drummer is.
Well, I like Brian he's an amazing guy because actually he was helping my daughter's playing violin. He's also a music teacher. So he was showing her what to do with the violin. But Brian was the kind of guy who his ears are wide open all the time, and he's listening all the time. And so it's what glues everything together. Having this great, he's not just a drummer, he's like a great musician. And there are lots of great drummers out there, but there's a reason I think why a lot of these singers will, when they travel with symphony orchestras, they'll bring their drummer. They bring the drummer with them on tour because it makes a huge difference. So we're fortunate. We have a great drummer who does most of our shows. So
that's great. No, it's important. I mean, I know that's one of the conversations I've heard interviews with Wynton and Dizzy Gillespie and different musicians talk about the importance of having a good drummer in your ensemble. It can make or break the deal.
Very true.
Yep. Great. So I know you shared some music with us, but before we get into the music, I want to ask you one more question about performing. So performing versus teaching. So you teach also, and how much of the performing concept do you take to the classroom when you're teaching or to the private lesson? Because ultimately you want to get your student on stage, but there's incremental steps along the way. So how much of that do you take, and how much do you guide the student along the way?
Well, the teaching was something I still remember. I used to always go to New York to still study with Wynton, just to take lessons whenever I could. And that was one of the things I admired so much about Wynton, was that I knew that he used to reach out to different teachers all around the country just to ask questions about something. And I remember I asked Wynton, what's one of the best ways to improve? He's like, you got to keep teaching. And through the years, there's students that he sent me through the years, and it's that, because you're sharing something that's not written down. That's the main thing. Or it is written down, but you need to have someone to interpret it for you.
Right. Plus, you have to know it and understand it yourself to be able to give that directive.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why teaching is really important for me. It's really important
Mm-hmm.
to have students and to be able to, because I was fortunate. I just lucked out to have Winton, and I want to pass down what he told me. And I remember every word my teachers ever said to me. And it just sticks with me. I look at the music and I was like, oh yeah, this is when Roger Voisin told me to do this, or this is when Winton said to do this, or this is. And so it's I just think it's almost like a sacred part of what we do as musicians to pass things down to the next generation. And it's a great thing to see what's possible. And you see that spark, because you see it. I see it with your son. There's a spark of their interest, but it's not just that. It's there's a you could tell they kind of get what you're talking about, and it's making sense to them, and now they just have to put it into practice.
Right. And I was just talking to someone over the weekend about music being a language that we have to learn, and we have to like kind of, innately we're born with this understanding of sound. And you just kind of have to learn the process of putting it together. We have a comment here. I gather, according to what you have mentioned earlier, that you have been involved with practicing classical music with a brass group and is now part of your repertoire. Have you tried jazz genre? So yeah, we've had you shared that, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And in our show, it starts with New Orleans style jazz, and it ends with New Orleans style jazz, like on both ends.
Right.
So and we have some other things we do where we'll do the Hallelujah chorus by Handel, but it's mixed in with like New Orleans Dixieland. So,
right.
Yeah,
so a little bit of street. Yeah. So you put your thing in it. So someone is saying they saw you at Lincoln Center on January 10th, and you're amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Robbie. That's so sweet. That was for me. That was such a special opportunity because Winton was my teacher. When I was like 11 years old, and he was 17, and to get a chance to play there, especially towards the end of his tenure there, it was really a special opportunity to be able to play there. We were just so thrilled to have that opportunity.
Great, beautiful. Well, talking about playing, you shared some music with us that it's great. I was sitting back enjoying it. I said, man, I could just relax and listen to this all day. So we're going to share with our audience, and we're going to play the first song, which is you performing with the Barcelona Orchestra, I think, doing excerpts from Carmen.
Oh yeah, that recording.
Yes.
I remember that.
Let's play it, and then we'll have a conversation about it after.
Sounds fun.
All right, check it out. So man, that was with the Barcelona Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, that recording. Oh my gosh. The conductor, Lawrence Foster, I was principal trumpet of the Barcelona Symphony. And I think it was my first year there, he reached out to me. And there's a trumpet soloist, Sergei Nakryakov, who is one of my favorite trumpeters in the world. He's incredible. And he gave me this recording of him doing this with piano. And he said, would you want to record this with us? And I went and listened to it, and I was like, this sounds really hard. But I had like a year.
Yeah.
And I just shedding, and I had all those years of practicing before. So I just practiced it endlessly. There's licks in there. I'm listening to it. I'm like, ooh, well, okay, I still didn't get that. But
so for our audience sake, I like to kind of break things down for audience. So you're saying shedding. Shedding means practicing.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And then you say it takes you about a year. It took you about a year to get this together. So how would you practice it? Like, a couple measures at a time and kind of work on that and get it to a point. And this is all memorized, right?
Yeah. But by the time you've practiced as much as I did, it ends up being memorized because you practiced it so much. But yes, you would take, and this is something that I learned from Wynton. You would take sometimes just one measure and you would practice it super slow. That was the big part of it. Super slow, and with a metronome. And sometimes I would spend weeks with that measure at that slow tempo, and I would gradually increase it over the course of weeks to get it to the point where it was up to tempo. And
that one measure turned into two measures, then turned into three measures, and eventually you got a phrase in place and you could play that over and over again. It's a process.
Yeah, it really is. And with trumpet, then we also have the endurance factor, because trumpet is in a lot of ways, it's like a vocalist. If they overextend themselves, it starts to go away. And the same thing with trumpet with brass instruments, because we're using these muscles of our face, which are not very big muscles. So you have to also be able to practice and rest and practice and rest and practice and rest. That's sort of the process.
And when you rest,
recording, actually, in the very beginning of it, I keep listening. When I listen to it, I'm always listening for shakiness.
Yeah.
Because I was living in Spain, and the conductor, I had an expiration thing on my car, and I had to take it to the sort of DMV to get it inspected. And I got held up and I got in traffic, and the orchestra was sitting on stage. And I remember I got there to the first recording session, and the conductor was like, "We got to go." And I was like, "I haven't warmed up." And he's like, "We got to go." It's his money. And I was like, and that's the very opening of the, I'm always listening to see if it can sound like I'm shaky. Cause I think I felt very shaky because I was just like right off the street.
Right, with no warming up. How important is warming up for a horn player?
Extremely, like an athlete. Playing music is your heart and soul, but there's muscles involved,
right?
And you have to treat the muscles right, So
yeah, do you have a routine that you do every day?
I do. It's the one I'm sharing with your son right now, and it's the one that Wynton showed me, and the one that Jansen showed him. And it involves a lot of our trumpet techs and going in a certain order, so that you're gradually building up to the higher notes. But a lot of what we do with brass playing is very soft, controlled playing. So there's a lot of that, because it's like someone's running a marathon. they don't, when they warm up, they don't go out and start and run like a half marathon to warm up. They
right.
so
You stretch, you get loose, you breathe.
yeah,
yeah.
very much so.
It's all of the above. But I know it's a process. But again, for our audience, there are a lot of non-musicians listening, and one of the comments that we get back all the time is like, "Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that." So it's really important that we share with our audience to let them know that it's a process. You don't just pick up the horn and like go for it. It's
yeah,
you hurt yourself actually doing that.
Yeah, and I always tell my students, it's your body is the instrument, not the trumpet.
Right.
It's you, it's your physical body, it's your heart and soul and your mind. And one of the things that helped me a lot was I was sort of a tense kid when I was younger. And the thing that helped me a lot was when I discovered yoga. And so I've built that. And when we were on tour, I always try to find a yoga studio because it helps to relax, for me to learn how to be more relaxed. And
yoga is serious, man. That kicks your butt.
Yeah, I mean it's a 5,000-year-old practice.
Yeah, I tried a couple of times, man. I came out of there. I was in this yoga class. I think I was like one of two guys in the class. And when I was done, man, all these women was up and perky, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
It's a good workout.
Yeah.
Very relaxing, but it's a good workout.
Yeah, and for me, when I play, like the things that I learn in yoga, I think of them while I'm playing. I think of yoga. I think about the poses. I think about trying to find the most relaxed position while I'm playing something that's really hard. So it's been really helpful.
Nice. Well, we're gonna continue with another song. We have a comment. I bet you're a trumpet legendary musician like Louis Armstrong. Metal yellow, first red. Okay. I don't know. Do you know what that means?
No, but I do know Louis Armstrong. He's an amazing. When you really listen to, that's one of the first trumpet players I ever heard. When you really listen, he was a really great trumpet player. Musically, of course, but even technically, when you listen to Louis Armstrong playing, he had chops. He had amazing chops.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, we're going to continue with another song that you shared with us, and this one is entitled "Variations for Trumpet."
Oh, right, by Adolphus Hailstork. He's a very famous composer who's still alive, and he had a piece. He's a friend of mine, and he had this piece, and he didn't have it professionally recorded. And I remember when I got to look at it, I was like, I'll do this for you. I'd love to record this piece. I think it's really cool because it's sort of classical and jaunty. And the nice thing when you work with the composer, they'll tell you what they were thinking about at the time, and that helps a lot because then you're trying to recreate the impressions or the thoughts that they had. So so I was really fortunate that he let me record this. And now trumpet players all around the world are playing it, for their juries and for recitals and stuff like that. So I was thankful to have that chance to do the first recording.
Great. Well, let's check it out. Variations for Trumpet by Adolphus Hailstork. and that was Variations for Trumpet. Yeah. So my question is that was beautiful. First of all, that was really, really great.
Oh, thank you.
If it's never been recorded, how do you get a reference of it?
It's interesting listening to that recording, because anytime you get to work with a composer who's living, who you can ask him, what's this about? And I remember doing that with this piece. And sometimes it's surprising. Like there's one thing, there's like a sort of I remember him saying it's like an Irish jig. And so, then you try to give that impression of that when you're playing,
Yeah, you can hear that, yeah.
And then that middle section, I was like, he was describing like sort of like a great personal loss and pain. And I don't think I used a plunger. I think I was just using my hand just to try to create that sort of those sort of bending of the notes and drawing on what it's a lot of times it's easier to, you can listen to what a composer says, but then you can draw on your own experience, your own pain, and then you can express it. And that's the beautiful thing about music, because someone will hear it and they're like, oh yeah, man, I know what that feels like, And so that's having a composer. And if you don't have the living composer, that's why it's so important to study composers. That was a big part of my education, and still is I read as much as I can about different composers.
Right. That's great. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. We have a comment here. I know that you have collaborations with Harry Connick Jr., Doc Severson, Al Hurt, and Bradford Marsalis. Which one has had special relevance for your career, or is there another?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Every single one of them. Harry, the only time I've ever sang on stage was when I was at Governor's Program for Gifted Children, when Harry Connick and I sang at the final concert on stage. That's the one and only time I've ever sang for an audience. So that was special. And Doc, I got to play Bugler's Holiday with Doc when I was in San Diego Symphony, and Doc is a very, very dear friend. And then Al Hurt, when I was with New Orleans Symphony, I got the chance. I had the chance to play with Al Hurt because he was soloing with the orchestra. And we did Bugler's Holiday with me and Al Hurt and the principal Paul Randall at the time. And of course Branford, James Stevenson wrote a piece for Branford and I to play with orchestra, and it's called Cousins, and it was written for us, and we debuted it with the World Youth Orchestra at Interlochen. So and then the one time I got to play with Wynton years ago with Lancaster Symphony, and just because he was my teacher, and then I finally got to stand on stage and play with him, that was also really special.
Sounds beautiful. Sounds awesome, Rodney. Great.
Oh,
great.
Sarah! Gosh, I remember Sarah for
Well, we're gonna jump right into the next song because time is not on our. Hour goes by real quick, as you could tell.
It does.
Yes, so let's just play the next song and then we'll talk about it briefly afterwards. This is Symphony Number 4 in F minor, Opus 36. All right. So that's the big brass ensemble.
That's the big group. Yeah, that's the 10-piece group.
Oh man, that's beautiful. I love that, man. It's like a compact orchestra. You can hear everything.
It's a really good. We were so lucky. We have such great arrangers for the group, and so that's what they do. They try to really give you the impression that you're listening to an orchestra, and it makes it hard. You know, that stuff's hard.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of hard, there's a question for you. This is going to be an interesting one. Rodney, you come from such an illustrious musical family. Are there any friendly rivalries?
That's actually a very good question, Willis. Yes, there is one. Wynton has a recording of Moto Perpetuoso, where he plays all the way through in like basically circular breathing, but he plays the whole thing, Paganini. And Wynton told me that if I worked it up and played it for him, that he would come out, he'd play a concert with me. We'd do a concert together. So I spent all summer working on it one time for hours. Still can't do it. So he reminds me of that too. When we talk every now and then, he reminds me that I still can't do it. So,
wow.
So that's one. So, you know, I get, you know, it's not too late if I just, you know, I still have some more years where I can shed and And when I do work it up, I'm going to call him immediately and put the phone down and play it through. And so,
Okay, good. Well, you got something to look forward to work towards. Put it that
way. Exactly.
Great. Well, man, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show, man. Our time is running out on us, but I just want to squeeze this last song in, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Carnival of Venice, and we're just gonna play. We're just gonna jump right into it. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Let's check it out. Carnival of Venice. Yes, sir. That was amazing.
I remember that recording.
Say that again?
I remember that recording. Makes me want to go practice now.
So you go you're doing the low notes. I can't even sing it, man.
Oh, that's
wow, man.
I heard that was the first time I ever heard Wynton play a classical piece. Was him playing that when I was 11, and yeah.
Wow, that's some serious intervallic jumping.
Yeah,
that's beautiful, man. That's amazing.
Oh well, thank you.
That's amazing.
A lot of practicing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, man, thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. All the wonderful things you've done, the great music you're doing with the big brass ensemble. What it's like to be a principal and just growing up in an amazing musical family, and how much work you've put into being, successful as you are. I know our audience have really enjoyed this, and so have I. And just thank you for sharing your music, man. This is great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for spending time with me, and I loved all the wonderful questions from your audience, and all the wonderful commentary and questions from you. It's really been special.
So before you leave, just let our audience know how they can follow you, any social media, website, and what do you have immediately going on?
Sure. Well, just on our website, I think it's www.rmpbb.com. But if you search Rodney Marsalis, Philadelphia Big Brass, it comes up. And coming up, I think we have a couple of concerts coming up soon. We're going to be in Maine in July performing. And then we're going to be up in Michigan performing in about a week, performing at a music venue there. But it's all on our website. All of our upcoming performances, it's all listed on the website.
Okay, great. Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on the show, man. And we look forward. We definitely would love to have you back.
Thank you, Dion. Thank you so much.
All right, you take care. All the best. Yes, that's the one and only Mr. Rodney Marsalis sharing his musical journey and story with us. And really go check him out, man. He's doing some amazing things on the trumpet, classical trumpet at that, with a little splash of New Orleans second line and some of the rhythms that he grew up with in New Orleans as part of his big band ensemble. So go check him out. Really support his music and what he's doing. And come back next week and join me as we present Mr. Elio Villafranca from Cuba. I've had the pleasure of working with him many times, and he's amazing. So come check out his music and his story as well, okay? Thanks for joining us tonight on Sounds of the Diaspora. Really, really appreciate you guys, and you take care. I will see you next week. All the best. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.